Vegas is an interesting place. It's an interesting place to talk about wealth. I'm going to come down here and talk for a little bit if I can. It's an interesting place to talk about wealth because it's a city built on people's failures. Think about that for a minute. You go in here, this casino actually knows when you check into your room the exact amount of money you're going to spend while you're here, on average. They know how many bottled waters you drink. They know how many Tito's and sodas you'll have, right? They know those things, right? They're playing a rigged game. What I think is interesting about the real estate industry is we could play the same rigged game, right? So when I look out in the industry, the reason I am so passionate about the wealth space is I believe that people in the real estate business, agents, investors, and mortgage people, I believe have an unfair advantage to create wealth. Because when we study the really wealthy people, what is the number one asset outside of their company for really, really wealthy people? What is it? Real estate. Yeah, and what do we know better than anybody if we're in the real estate space? Real estate. So then why isn't the real estate industry the wealthiest industry? Why is it not? It's fascinating, right? What's that?
Agents don't know how to save and invest money.
That's a big part of it. I'll tell you this, they don't have a plan. They have no idea where they want to land at some point in the future, and they have no idea where they're at today. So if you think about this, how many people played blackjack or played gamble a little bit while you're here? Show of hands. Okay? How many people won? Okay? So I'll tell you what, blackjack, though, is a math game. You can go up there and play, and you can, dealer's showing 17, and you can stay on 14. They let you do that. From a math perspective, it doesn't make sense. So if we think about blackjack for a moment, right, there's about 3 variables we've got. How much risk do I want to take? That's my betting increments. What's my strategy? Am I going to play the book, or am I just going to get loose with it? Right, and how long am I going to be there for? Now, if you think about that, isn't that the exact requirement to create wealth in your life? Strategy, time, and risk. Right, so I want to share with you over the next 45 minutes. I talk really, really fast. I'm going to try to share with you a plan that I think everyone can leave here and implement in a way to think about your wealth that you haven't thought about before. So that's my goal in the next 45 minutes. Here's my mission statement. I built my entire career around freedom. Here's one thing I know about every single person in here: you want freedom. Your definition might be different than mine, but everyone got in this business for freedom. I wanted freedom of the work I did, how I did it, where I did it, and who I did it with. I wanted the freedom of choice. Wealth gives you that choice. Most of us make lots and lots of money. Jillian said, what happened? Agents don't save money. That's very, very true, right? Number one, you have to make more than you spend. Pretty simple idea so far, right? What I will tell you is of all the speakers here, I'm actually, if we gave an intelligence test back there, I don't like to brag, I'd be in the bottom 25%. Which what that tells you, though, is you don't have to be a genius to make a lot of money. So here's some stuff about me. We sell a lot of houses, and all those stats are cool. I care about one number up there. I operate our business for profit. We drive a 30% profit margin out of our core real estate sales business. We bought 185 homes in 2022. I own 7 companies in the real estate space. I own 175 rentals. It's all with my own money. Or rentals, promissory notes, and commercial buildings. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, father of 3. I'm husband of the year, self-elected. I get that award every time. And I'm going to prove to you in the next 45 minutes I'm a cool dude. I always want people to know who you're talking to. I don't say this to brag, but I think stats are relevant. We've actually, people say wholesaling or assignment doesn't work. I've done $4 million in the last 18 months. I made $3.2 million in flips. On hard money, I've funded $22 million in loans, and that's with my own personal money. I bought 20 rentals, and I've done 13 notes I've created where I've become the bank, and I've done that in the last 18 months. It's the least amount of real estate. Oh, promissory notes, my yields, I'm making 19 to 34% on all the notes I create myself, right, by becoming the bank. Least amount of real estate I've ever bought. The reason why I'm buying the least amount of real estate, it's harder to make it work with the debt of today. I can't get my calculator to take a 6% cap rate on a house with 8.5% debt and make that work. My calculator doesn't do it. That was supposed to be funny. So the point I do all this, I live an epic life, right? Wealth allowed me. I had to spend some time living like no one else could or would, so I could live like no one else could. And I look at this. This is the reason why I do what I do. I've got a beautiful wife, 3 awesome kids, and I ripped my kids out of school when COVID happened. COVID happened, it got weird for a little bit. I kind of didn't love what was going on at school, and I believed I could do it better. I was like, I'm going to create the Tanner Academy. We're not going to do this online thing. We're actually going to do it from anywhere in the world. So I was out of the country at least 2 weeks every month, and I had one mission, was to be gone and double the profits of all the companies that I ran while I was away. I wanted to prove that you could actually have both things. You could have a really cool life, you don't have to sacrifice everything to get it. Right? So when I'm looking at someone who's speaking, I want the person who has the entire life I want, not just a part of the success. It's one of the things I admire about Steve the most, right? He's gifted, smart, looks like $1 million all the time, but you know what he is? A great father and a great husband. I've been to dinner with his wife and him many times. I've been out there. I've spent a bunch of time with his son. And he's a great dude. That's the whole package. I want to be around people that have it all and didn't trade everything to get it. So that's my stats on where I'm at today. Let me tell you where I started. In the poorest county in Colorado, population where I grew up is actually 35. I think it's going backwards. 10 miles away is a high school that had 20 people in it. 20 gross, 17 net. Not all these geniuses made it to the finish line in this incredible establishment. So I'm 6 credits short of a college degree. I'm a pig farmer. There's absolutely nothing in my past. That's me at my pig farm that I would go feed the pigs every day before school. There's nothing in my past that says I would be up here talking about wealth, right? Nothing that said I'd be talking about taxes or how to create your own bank. I learned all those things by being in this space. So I had a turning. When Steve and I met, this is kind of how I envision the classic realtor in my mind. It's kind of how I think about it. So Steve and I were in this mastermind, and we go around. These are the most dominant agents in Arizona, biggest market, the most dominant agents for 20 years. And at the end of the career, I'm talking these people did 80, 100 million, back when that was, it's still a lot, but it was really a lot 15 years ago. And Steve and I realized this, at the end of their career, you know what they had? They should have been the wealthiest people in the city. They had a big house and a late model BMW and no real wealth to speak for it. And so I looked around the room, and what I realized was selling a lot of homes wouldn't make me wealthy. My business was there to create cash. It was a different skill set to create wealth. Totally different skill sets. And so I went on that journey. And so I want everyone to think back. I want to have you pull out your notes right now, and I want you to answer these questions. As I go through this, I want you to think about that, because we all have a story about money. And I want you to go back to your dinner table at home. Think about you're 10 years old and your parents are talking about money. And I want you to think about the story, because likely that story of how you thought about money then is something that's affecting your ability to grow wealth today. And you've got to just sit with that story a minute and ask yourself, why is that the story? So the first question I want you to ask, when you're sitting at that table and you're 10 years old, was money scarce or was it abundant? Was it scarce or abundant? Now, doesn't mean you had it. Was the belief around it scarce or abundant? Because I'll tell you, growing up, we had no money, but money was abundant. It was out there, we just hadn't figured out how we were going to get it yet. Okay? Second thing, was money applauded or was it feared or criticized? That little small town I grew up in, my dad is really successful entrepreneur. And everyone in that town hated it. He actually bought a truck for $3,000 and drove it to work. It break down a lot of days, and he drove it so it would make it seem like he was one of the farmers that we wanted to bring our product to. Right? So money there, it was not applauded. So that story anchored in and messed me up early in my journey. Third question when you ask about money, what does wealth actually mean to you? What does it mean to you? It could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, but what does it actually mean? The last question I want you to think about, who or what causes benefit when you become wealthy? Who or what causes? It's got to be bigger than you. All right, so if we're going to study money, we're thinking about those questions, we've got to look at the most successful investor of our time, Warren Buffett. Who knows his net worth right now? Who knows what it is?
A lot.
A lot? Great answer. What about, throw out a number. I'd pick a 7 or 8 digit, 9 digit number.
50.
300 billion. It's $113 billion. That's insane, right? That's an insane number to think about. Funny thing about Warren Buffett is Warren Buffett weird. If you go, but everyone should go watch Becoming Warren Buffett, like that documentary. He is a weird dude. By the way, most successful people are weird. All right? If you're not weird, I'd actually encourage everybody to get a little weirder. Because you know what average gets you? If you do what everyone else does, that gets you right where you don't want to be. So people tell me I'm weird. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm weird, right? I'm really weird. So Warren Buffett, is this crazy? He spends $4, less than $4 every day at McDonald's. His wife gives him 2 amounts of change. One buys just the bacon or the sausage and biscuit, and one buys the bacon, egg, and cheese. And if he doesn't feel like the market's going to do well today, he just does the $2.52. But if he really feels like the market's going to perform today, we'll put that cheese on it and the bacon, and we'll really go for it. Okay? He bought his home for $31,000. Right? It's insane. The most insane part, he had $1 million net worth at age 26, bought a $31,000 home. Right? If he was a realtor, he had $1 million net worth, what would he buy? As much as he possibly could, right? Would make no sense. Right? 3.15% of his net worth. So I would ask you guys, what percentage, when you bought your home, or look at your value today, what percentage of that? Your purchase price against your net worth. And what I'm trying to figure out here is models. We need financial models in our life so we can understand if we're making great decisions. So there's a book I would encourage. I'm going to throw a lot of books and podcasts at you. I read a ton. One of my favorite books right now is called Buy This, Not That, by this guy right here, Sam Dogen. He's known as the financial samurai. And what he talks about is just the different financial models around purchases we all make. But here's one on a home. He calls it the 30-33 rule. Number one, spend no more than 30% of your income on the house payment. Right? That's pretty straightforward. Save 30% of the purchase price. Now, he's not telling you to put 30% down. His belief is you put 20% down and you keep the extra 10% for stuff that could happen. And the last part is you limit the purchase price to 3 times your income. If you do this, right, you can violate these rules. Some of us in this room likely have. What does that mean, though, when you violate a model? It just means you're going to have less money to invest, so your wealth plan will take longer. So look how that works. I'm guessing the average sales price in Las Vegas is around $500,000. So if you want to buy a $500,000 house, right, we need to have a $166,000 income and a net worth of $1.6 million. Again, it's a check-in point to ask, am I living off model-driven decisions, or am I making totally emotional decisions and then justifying them with logic? Right? And he's got a model around absolutely everything. So if we think about Warren, we know he's worth $113 billion today. What was his net worth at age 43? And we want to take a guess? $34 million. Now, don't get me wrong, $34 million is a tremendous amount of money. It's a shocking amount. However, as a percentage of $113 billion, it's almost nothing. And so if you look at it, look at Warren Buffett, look at over time what it looked like. So the question I would ask the room is, what was Warren Buffett doing from age 15 to 43 to get to 34 million? It doesn't look like he was going anywhere comparatively. What was he actually doing? Investing. What else was he doing? Yeah, he was working on his skills, right? Is he getting better? Is he building relationships? Is he compounding his money? So there's 2 things that compound in life. You've got your money, you've also got your relationships compound. Right? Steve and I have been working for 15 years. I get the privilege, I get to hang out with guys like Steve. My personal coach today is Gary Keller. Right? Someone's like, how does Gary become your coach? I was like, well, I don't know, I won in the organization for 15 years. And that alone was just an entry fee. Right? So I look at that, what was happening here. Then here's what's really interesting about Warren Buffett. He's got a $34 million net worth at age 43. In the next 4 years, he almost doubles it. Then look what happens in the next 6, 10x's it. By the way, all money, all curves of success look exactly the same. It's that hockey stick over time. Right? In the beginning, do you think he was discouraged and it felt like it was going nowhere for a while? Of course. It takes time. The earlier you start, the longer you go, the easier it can be. So what will your net worth be? By the way, this is math. I'm hanging out. I just got back from Belize, and my youngest had just turned 10. And he always asks questions like, Dad, are you successful? I think so, son. I think so. He's like, why are you more successful than other agents? I said, some of them, yeah. He said, why are you successful? And I'm like, good question from a kid. I said, because I can do math. Not complicated math. I use a calculator. The most used app on my phone is actually a financial calculator. Those 4 things, right? So you can be successful just because math. What will your net worth be? It's just math. If you go to bewealthycalculator.com, it's a free site I built. You can calculate your net worth or in different investment periods. But let's just play around in the room here. Let's assume a 30-year period of time. It doesn't matter your age. I went 40 to 70. Let's say you had $500,000 to start with, and you're going to put away $3,500 a month. You get an 8% return. How much money is that? It's $10 million, and I want you to look at the curve here. It's $10 million. Here's what's interesting about that. Of the total, you contributed 12% of the total. You started with 5%, you contributed 12. 84% of the money you made in this scenario came from you just putting your money to work and letting it go. Right? There's only a handful of variables. You've got time, your return, how much you started with, and what you're going to put with it. That's it. That's the only variables there are to this game. And you can pick which ones you want to focus on. If you put more money away and you get a greater return, you'll have more money. Now let's change the math. Everything's the same, except we're going to go from an 8% return to a 12% return. The last one we know was $10 million. What's a guess here? What happens? What's a guess?
Double, triple.
30 million. 8 to 12%. You see people get very lazy with a few percent. In this case, it's $20 million over a 30-year period. Now, if we're Warren Buffett and we want to play for 20%, everything's the same. We started with the $500,000. You're putting away $3,500 a month. Now you're getting same 30-year period, and you're going to get 20% on your money. How much is it? It's $272 million. It's $250 million. There are people in this room that I know that are getting a 20% return, not on every single investment, but on a cash-on-cash basis, they're earning 20%. So if you think about this, I know the math, you're like, Brett, I get it all. Like if I put it, and look at 99% of the growth in this scenario is just putting your money away and letting it work. And look at that graph. Does it look more like Warren Buffett's? Right? Of course it does. The higher the return, the longer you go, the more it looks like that. So if we know that, and we know math, we know we should be wealthy, why aren't we? Right? There's basically 9 things that stop people from becoming a millionaire. I'm going to share those with you right here. Number 1, and as you go through it, write down the one that you feel sticks out most to you. The number 1 reason people aren't millionaires, they need to revisit their capital. They don't trust the assets that their wealth is in will hold its value. Right? They just don't trust it. Okay? So I got to bring my money, I got to sell something, bring it back. I've always got to touch it and feel it. Number 2 is the biggest one. They're a paper millionaire versus a cash flow millionaire. All of my investments for me have cash flow. I will not make an investment. I don't buy and bank land or any of that stuff. I want everything I do to create cash flow. Cash flow is what will get you free. I have 2 friends, both worth about right at 50 million bucks. One guy's a rancher, owns all this land, and it's kind of like Yellowstone, just not as cool, okay? $50 million. Another guy has $50 million, he lives exactly like you, all in cash flowing assets, and he lives exactly like you think he would. He makes about $4 to $5 million a year completely passively, and he lives an awesome life. The rancher is struggling because it's all paper assets, right? So that doesn't have cash flow attached to it. Ton of land, but all is hard. So I think about when you think about your wealth plan, is your money tied up in stuff that cash flows for you, that pays you? Because as soon as you get your passive income to exceed your monthly expenses, right? If you can get to that place, you now don't work for money anymore. Now the game becomes really, really cool. Number 3 reason people aren't millionaires, the urge to be liquid. Cash is real, everything else isn't real. So we're gonna go back and we're gonna convert things to cash at some point. Number 4, debt. Anytime you talk about wealth, people get a little interested on debt. Everyone's got their own view. My view on debt is debt on anything that's not attached to a house or that doesn't pay for itself is bad, right? So I'm cool with mortgages on investment real estate. I'm cool with a mortgage on a primary residence. I'm not like Dave Ramsey, it's all gotta be cash. That being said, debt is a tool. You have to understand, right, it cuts both ways there, right? Well, there's a right amount of debt to have. There's a completely right amount to have. Number 5, the need or urge to live high on the hog before their cash flow can support them in that way. Right? You see this in our space all the time. Jim Carrey, not known for being a philosopher, is one of the greatest quotes. If you're not willing to downgrade your lifestyle for a year to have a lifestyle you want forever, you care way too much about what other people think. Number 6, reason why people they don't see people as an investment. People will represent one of the best returns you can ever get, way better than asset. And I'll give you an example. So everyone play along. I know it's early in the morning. I want to pretend that we find the greatest real estate investment ever. It's worth $400,000. It's in Vegas. It's in the dream spot. It's renting for $3,000 a month. And after all expenses, we're going to net $2,500 a month. Okay? So we'll net $30,000 a year. It's a $400,000 house, and we can buy it for $300,000. Show of hands. How many people buy this house? Okay? Half the room. I love it. Cool. So we would buy it. Now, let me ask you a question. What if there was a person or 2 people we could hire for the same $300,000? I'm gonna hire 2 people, and here's their job. They're gonna wake up every day, and they're gonna find the best investment deals ever, and they're gonna bring them to me. They're gonna find me 2 or 3 deals a day. I'm gonna pick the ones I want. I can monetize the other ones some other way. I could assign those contracts or however I wanna do that. Which will make me more money at the end of the year? What's my potential if I hire 2 people that do nothing but find me opportunities? A lot. What, I mean, it's $300,000. Could we make $300,000? Sure. Could you make $600,000? Sure. So a minute ago, we were all excited because we're going to get a $400,000 house for $300,000 and make us $30,000 a year. Then I tell you to go hire 2 people for $150,000 each, or 1 person for $300,000 that could change your life. And all of us get a little like, whoa, dude, that's not as guaranteed as the house. The house was real. The person, what's the variable in the person? Relies on you. Right? Determines how well do I lead them? What are the standards? What's the strategy? What are my check-ins? What are my KPIs? Right? You heard a ton of talk, and you're going to hear more from other speakers around tracking things. I just want you to realize that the best investment you'll ever make is people. My entire career, I woke up every day, I've lived that, where they're on my desk, people are bringing me deals every single day. Our investment company that looks just like a real estate team, except no one's licensed, they're just making calls, and we're sending direct mail to try to buy homes for cash. That happens every day in my office. Right, so I'm actually doing that. People represent the biggest opportunity. Number 7, the reason people aren't millionaires, they spend more than they make or all that they make. If you have nothing left to invest, it's not hard to figure out. That won't fit really well in your wealth plan. Number 8, they don't study the rules of money or investing. There are so many incredible books and podcasts out there. So one of my favorites is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Everyone should go read that book if you haven't read it. If it's been a little bit, I'd read it again. It'll teach you why we're conditioned to do certain things with money. And number 9, the number 9 reason, which I hope to solve in the next 30 minutes that I have left, is they don't have a written down wealth building plan that they trust. They don't have a plan that they believe will land them at the exact destination they wanted. So I ask you, what is your wealth plan? Think about your balance sheet. Every single person in here should be tracking your net worth every single month on the first business day of the month. Why? You cannot grow what you can't measure. I always say, people do really good job around business planning for their business planning for all kinds of different things. They're really lazy when it comes to their wealth. How many people have a business plan for your wealth? Like every year, I write a business plan of how much additional cash flow I want to create. I actually write that plan out and we execute it. Right, so I want to leave you and I'm going to give you a way to get our plan, but everyone should have a net worth. I used to track my net worth kind of sometimes. Like the months I knew it went up, oh man, I'm definitely going to track that one. Bought something I shouldn't have, oh, I don't want to track it. So this is about 13 years ago. Gary's like, do you track your net worth all the time? Like every week, every month? I said, I track it like sometimes. And he looked at me right now, he goes, if you don't track it every single month, you'll never be wealthy. I was like, dude, you can't say that kind of stuff when there's like other people around. Like I know you spear me, but like kind of embarrassing. And he was right? Like if I don't track it every single month, how would I possibly grow it? So I actually don't believe in all the tools that do this for you. I think the act of putting in the information is actually the learning experience. Spending that hour of keying in the information and going, well, why did this grow? And this went up by how much? Well, hold on, I thought I had a better month in my business. I made 80 grand in my business, but the 80 grand didn't show up on my net worth statement. Where did it go? The universe extracted it, right? Something happened. It went out, and it did not show up on my balance sheet. So the entire point, I believe, in business is to serve your personal goals, not the other way around. People live their lives backwards. You should actually figure out what you want to invest in, what does it cost you to live your dream life, and then go build the business plan that gets you that exact thing, not the other way around. I see people setting business goals only to have success and not get what they wanted. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? So why don't we go figure out what we need, how much money we want to invest, what are we going to spend, and then let's go build a business plan to get that. So there's 3 pillars to do this. Number 1, you've got to figure out when money comes in, how do you make an uninterrupted return? The calculations I showed you earlier, the difference between 10 million, 30 million, and $272 million was an uninterrupted return. People started investing their money, you let it keep working for you, you don't interrupt it. The second thing, it's got to be passive. Let's give an example. I would say the most passive real estate investment on earth is what? I'm going to put a single family home in the beginning. The most passive thing ever for me would be a note, right? If I own the mortgage on someone's home, if I own it, and I have it serviced by a third party and they drop the money in my bank account, I would argue that's pretty passive. I own some natural gas royalties, so I have the rights to the minerals in the ground. They pull something out, they drop money in my account. I can't really even talk to the operators, so it's the most passive investment on earth. Then I would argue, though, when you think about investments, where does an Airbnb fit into that model? I would argue that's one of the least passive, right? It's less passive, especially depending on the time. So last thing, you got to figure out how to compound the returns. You should be as obsessed about the investment you made on the front end. Be obsessed about making a great one, but be more obsessed with the cash flow it creates and how are you taking that and getting that to work for you. Right? As my passive income started hitting bigger numbers and you get $10,000 or $20,000 a month coming in passively, I want to figure out what I can take with that and go do it again and again and create a snowball that eventually gets me whatever I want. So now there's 3 different time frames I want you to think about, and I'm going to give you a way to take our wealth plan and go build out your net worth sheet using these strategies. So number 1, there's 3 time frames. Short term, money comes into your world. What are you going to do with it for less than 12 months? Right? All of us generate lots of cash in real estate, but what are you doing with it? There is never a time. I'm not anti-Chase. I'm not anti-Wells Fargo. I'm anti-you getting paid interest. Right now, every bank account will pay you somewhere between 4.5% and 5% just on a savings account. Right? So if you're getting 0 right now, you've got reserves, start getting something on the money you already have while we're figuring out where we're going to place it. The next thing is midterm. What are you doing with your money from 12 months to at some point that investment would expire? If it's a 30-year mortgage, we understand at the end of that 30-year payment, right, that expires. But some of my properties fall into that category. I'll give you my examples here in a minute. And lastly, what are the forever assets? There's never been a better time to sit in a room than today to figure out what are your forever assets. Because likely sometime in the next 5 years, things are going to go on sale. And I want to figure out what those are and how can I take advantage of it when that happens. So here's me. When it comes to short term, I place my money into 3 categories. The first one is private hard money lending. The debt side of this world, if you want to read one of the book that changed my life in terms of banking, it's called The Banker's Code by George Anton. And if you look at the best run businesses out there, they're banks. Go read that book, The Banker's Code, and it'll just teach you how to think like banks. So I put my money in private hard money lending, and I'm going to get 12 to 15% on an asset that I know better than anybody. Like, why do I want to invest in hard money loans? Because I already know what the house is worth. And I can lend someone the money, and I want to create a transaction where the worst thing that happens is they pay me as agreed. Right? The best thing would happen is actually they didn't pay me. Now, I'm not hoping, like I'm pushing bad will onto people, but if I lend someone money, $100,000 on a $200,000 house, and they don't pay me, I'm okay in that transaction. I'm going to be just fine. Right? High yield savings account and treasury bills. If you're in a high income tax state, you might want to look at treasury bills because they don't actually have state income. Nevada doesn't have that. But treasury bills, and as those rates change, I move my personal savings between either high yield savings or treasury bills. Treasury bills rates, just for, I pulled these as of recently, you can get, it's around 5% up to 4 months. So these used to be a lot wider. Isn't it weird that a 1 month and a 1 year treasury bill, same amount? It's kind of bizarre. Here's all the places you can go to get more money out of your savings. Go to bankrate.com, find the highest place to place your personal savings. So I want to walk everyone through how a hard money loan would work and get people comfortable. I think this is one of the places people are looking to buy rentals. Rentals are awesome. I own a ton of them. There's different cycles that make more sense to buy real estate. There's different cycles that make more sense to invest in debt. And so today happens to be actually the dream time ever to play in debt. I bought the least amount of real estate I've ever bought in the last 18 months. I've done the best loans I've ever created in the last 18 months, just because the cycle is exactly opposite. So here's a property. Let's pretend it's worth $220,000. They're buying it for $200,000, and they need a loan of $160,000. They're going to put 20% down on their purchase price. They're buying it at $200,000, so they're buying it at a little discount. I'm going to loan them the money at 12%. I'm going to charge them $2,000 to do it. Their monthly payment is $1,600. This is a really average loan, by the way. It's not great. How many people would do this loan if they had the money? How many people would do it? I would tell you, so you go through here, you look at now, I'm charging them 12%, but I'm actually making 14.5%. Why is that? Fees. So what if I took that money and magically over 6 months, I write all my loans at 6 months. Now, if you think about how would you lose in this scenario, the market would need to go down 20% at least, right? But now they bought it there, so I need to go down 26% plus another 6%. So 32% in 6 months for me to start losing money. If that happens, we have a different problem, right? If the market goes down 32% in 6 months, I think we have a totally different challenge. So now if I took that money, what if I took that, immediately did a loan now, instead of going from 160, I go to 171. I took the 11,000 I just made here, I add it back, and I create another loan. I'm just showing if you rolled your money over a period of time, what would happen. So now I got my return up to 15.3. Then I get my return up to 16.4. Now it's at 17%. I'm just rolling the money and not pulling anything out. What would happen? I would collect 50 grand over that period of time. So hard money loans, again, I want to lend money to people at prices I would love to own the underlying real estate at. Next, I think, what about your midterm money? What are you going to place your money into a period of time that's over 12 months, but at some point you're going to sell these investments? I have $0 in the stock market. Why? I don't know anything about it. I want to invest in real estate because I have an unfair advantage on my street, my neighborhood, my city. I know what houses are worth. I know I can buy them for, and I'm selling for, and I can fix them for. Right? And there's tons of different ways I can monetize that transaction. So for me, it's rentals, it's stocks, and I love to sell things and carry the paper. Every rental property, if I ever decide to sell one, I will always want to offer financing to the borrower. I was in a mastermind speaking about 5 or 6 years ago, and I go down and I'm getting in the hot tub, and there was 2 of the attendees at the event. And I go to get in the hot tub, and he's like, hey, I liked your speech. I was like, cool, man, where are you from? He's like, oh, I moved from San Diego to Greenville, South Carolina, and I just moved back. I bought 150 homes right around the BMW factory went in. He goes, yeah, I moved out there, bought 150 homes. They all doubled in value, and I made about $15 million. I sold them all, and I'm moving back. I'm like on step 3 of the hot tub. I'm like, hey, dude, you got some time in here to kind of break that down? And so I'm like, well, what's the strategy? He's like, well, you buy around U.S. manufacturing. You find where the factory's going in. You can see it. You figure out the jobs. You actually apply for a job. So now you know what it pays. You figure out which houses, all the workers, all the jobs you're going to buy. You go buy those exact homes. When the factory goes in, the values will go up. It's like this, I mean, how come no one's talking about this? So I'm like, well, the obvious question is, what cities are you looking at doing this in next? So he gives me a number. Huntsville, Alabama is one of them. So I looked at the data, I liked the math, I drove out there, saw the factory. These homes have been worth $30,000 to $50,000 forever, right? Las Vegas, you think about 2005, 6, 7, what's the market doing? Like this. Huntsville, Alabama does this. 8, 9, 10 in Vegas, it's going like this. Huntsville does this, right? It's all the same. So I'm going up there and I'm buying these homes like it's my last day on earth. And people are like, you're an idiot. Like this home for 50 grand that rents for 800, it's just not great. I was hoping they would double in 5 years. They 3 to 4x'd in 3. And now I'm actually in the process of unloading half of them, selling them, and I'm doing seller financing on them. So I bought for a period of time. Some of them I'll own forever, but some were for a specific reason. And lastly, I can try to create financing notes. I own none of the assets on this screen, but what are the forever assets that you want to own if they went on sale? The reason why I want to own these things is they scale really well. They have the least amount of noise possible and the highest efficiency for the returns I want on my money. Large apartment complexes, for me, that's 100 units or more. It's where the economies of scale actually kick in multifamily. Same thing with a mobile home park, same thing with storage. So for all of you, as you're building your plan, when stuff goes on sale and you could have a dream deal, what are you buying? Start studying that asset class right now so you know what a deal is. I share this chart with you to think about money's pretty simple. Right? You got two variables. You got what's the return going to be? That's a number. The higher the return, the better. I also measure noise. Right? My hair is actually jet black. I just dye it white so you guys would take me seriously. No, noise created all this white hair. And so when I look at it, like, what do I want to do here, right? So dead money, if you're not getting 5%, you're not even in the game today because you can get it anywhere. It's just you're being lazy with your money. The next thing, you got safe money. I can get some good returns, 5, 6, 7, 8. Healthy money, those are solid. And then wealth is everything at 13 and up. Let's look at what those things actually are, right? So if you want to go and get active money, so now I'm doing a little more work, I want a better return. The challenge in real estate, if you're not good at math, a lot of people end up doing a lot more work, but they don't get the return. Like it doesn't make any sense. I want maximum return, least amount of risk I can possibly get, least amount of noise. So I measure noise and return. So look, but everyone in here should be playing with your investable money. You should be out there trying to get 12% or better on the capital that you want to invest. So when you leave, how are you thinking about it? What's the strategy around working your money, putting your capital together, and getting it going? What you ultimately realize when you start studying wealth is the wealthy people are playing a totally different game than we are. And it's like, you almost feel like once you get inside of it, like you're in the Matrix. Like, why doesn't everyone get it? So I'll give you an example of this whole idea. I came into this business backwards. I started out as an investor, and I got my real estate license just to manage my own flips. And so whenever I started going on listing appointments, I would go in Steve's living room like, oh, you want to list your home? That's cool. I'd like to buy it. Right? That won't work. Cool. We can list it. But I was trying to buy every one. If I make that pitch every single time, will it happen more? Sure. The challenge is everyone in here, whether you're trying or not, has 2 to 4 real estate transactions every single year. You've already got them coming to you. You're just ignoring them because they sound like work. If you're in Vegas, right, that call comes in and you know what it is? It's in Pahrump. It's a little far out. House is kind of nasty at a lower price point that you don't want. They're like, hey, I'm kind of in a bind, I'm not paying. And you're like, oh, never mind, we'll call you back later. That's the one you're looking for. Like, that's the one I actually want. And so I walk in everything, can I buy it? If I can't buy it, can I go and control that piece of real estate? Put it under contract, because it might be perfect for you. It might be something you want, or maybe all my capital's deployed, right? But if I know it's a great deal, I could find someone else to do it. So I could assign it. I could create value, I could flip it. Right? If not, I could go to my database and try to find the buyer that I already have so I could make, right? I could double up my commission. And the last thing I'm trying to do is take a listing. Don't get me wrong, we take a lot of listings in our core business. I'm just saying it's the last thing I'm thinking about because it's the last thing that benefits me. By the way, the highest price isn't always what the consumer wants. The whole iBuyer game exists because they wanted convenience. Some people want to set their closing date. Some people, their entire net worth and all the money they have in the world is tied up in a house. They have no dollars in their checking account. They need to sell that home so they can move on. So we structure a lot of our investment transactions. We close it, we'll hold like $10,000 back at title. They get all their money, now they can go do whatever they need to do, fix their problem, and I can create a transaction that the normal market might not serve. The point of this is I would ask you guys, what is your deal hierarchy? What are you looking for? Like when you go out there, what's the first thing you're looking for? By the way, this should match up to the wealth plan that you have. So I want to give you an example of a hard money loan gone incredibly bad. I'm a big fan of case studies, so pay attention to the dates here. How am I doing on time? I think I'm perfect. All right. So pay attention to the dates here. February 27, 2019, I did a 12-month loan, $230,000 now. For all of our, what happened a year later? Do we all remember what happened a year later? Little thing called COVID. And so there was a moment in time where my dad calls me and says, COVID hits. He's like, how are you doing, son? I said, I'm doing great. And he goes, are you worried? I said, yeah. What are you worried about? I said, I never considered a scenario where 100 tenants would not pay and every borrower I ever lent money to might not pay at the same time. That we didn't model. Kind of felt like the guy at AMC Theaters. You ever watch that on the stock market? He goes there. He's getting beat up. The CEO's just getting his face beat in by the media. And he's like, guys, no one modeled having a movie theater and then shutting it down for a year and then trying to survive. Like that, we modeled an acting strike. We modeled everything. We just didn't think about that. So I go here. I loan this guy $230,000. He pays. We get right to the end of the loan. And he says, I'm not going to pay you. It's like, dude, that's like not cool. The timing's not ideal for me right now. And so the day before foreclosure, he does something really cool, signs a 12-month lease. So now the situation just went from bad to worse. At least I could have dumped it. Now I got a 12-month lease. Go to my attorney, like, do I have to honor it? Of course you do. So now I have a tenant. Awesome. So, well, I've got a property, so I do a strategy called cost segregation. If anyone in this room has bought a rental property after, it's at the end of 2018 with the Jobs Tax Act, but if you bought it, let's just say 2019 and on, and you have not done a cost segregation, you should look at it. Go look at a cost segregation. So what it does is it increases the depreciation, and it's a tax strategy. There's certain things you have to do, but by doing it, it saved me $25,000 in taxes. In other words, I'm increasing the depreciation earlier, right? So instead of, I've got a situation, at least I'm gonna have a rental property, I'm gonna get the tax benefits for it. So now here's where I'm at. I loaned someone $230,000. I collected $31,000 in rent and fees. In fees, then there's the rent. I'm all into this deal, 180 grand. Everybody follow? I fix it up, I make it super cool. I put $136,000 into it, and I sold it, and I made $270,000 on a hard money loan that went bad. Sold it for $600. I was all in the 180. There's my construction. There's my closing costs. I made $270,000 on a deal that I thought I would lose on. But now when I've kept it over a year, what can I now do? Because I'm anti-paying tax. It's against my religion. I can do a 1031 exchange. Here's the problem with the 1031 exchange. What are the timelines? When I sell it, I got 45 days to identify all the properties, and I got 6 months to close. Finding $600,000 plus of properties in 45 days that are great deals is hard. So I'm talking to a buddy of mine, again, a relationship, and he's in the natural gas royalty business. He hired me to help build his investment company, but I get to see all the P&Ls for his business, and one of these businesses is making like tons of money. So I'm like, why don't we just not do real estate and just do the thing that makes more money? That's a conversation for another day. But he was the expert in natural gas royalties. And so I said, hey, I got a 1031 exchange. I'm just going to have to bust it and pay the tax. He goes, oh, you could put it in a royalty. I said, do you actually know what you're talking about? You can't take a house and you can't put it into like royalty. That's not a real thing. And then he dropped my line that Steve used. He goes, is that your truth or the truth? I was like, dude, you can't use my thing on me. Wow. I was like, well, that's my truth. He goes, yeah, it's not the truth. It's deeded real estate. So I put money into a royalty, just a guy I trusted. Stuck money, then I'm the luckiest. Someone has to be the luckiest person on earth, and this deal was me. I bought natural gas at $3, and for a minute there it went to $9. So this is how the investment would have paid out. So I put money in, and it's a declining yield curve, like you see the money going down. December 2024, in theory, they're gonna drill a new well, and I'd start making 300 grand that year. That actually already happened. So what happened on this deal, right? Scenario one, if I would have did what most people do, right, I'd have paid tax, I'd have paid 54 grand. Instead, I didn't do that. The government gave me $25,000. I didn't pay the 54 in taxes. I exchanged it and put it into an asset that still pays me today. It'll pay me indefinitely. All just by playing a totally different game, right? A game that's out there for everyone to do. You gotta learn the rules of the game, then you gotta play it better than anybody else. There's just a different game to be played. So in wrapping up here, I want you to think about one thing. I want you to think about your E to E ratio, your education to entertainment ratio. Everybody's all caught up. How many people are caught up on the latest show of Billions? Thank you, one person. I will tell you, Billions, I think I renamed my company after Bobby Axelrod. I think it's the coolest show ever. Here's the thing though, if I'm gonna sit down and watch an hour of Netflix, I'm gonna sit down and read a book for an hour. I hold myself to a 1-to-1 ratio. If I'm going to watch TV, there's a cost that I'm going to pay. But I pay it with the education first. So if I'm going to listen to an hour and a half podcast, I got a right to an hour and a half of TV. But think about your ratio. If you want to create more wealth, you got to change that ratio and skew it the other way. So you can download this QR code. You don't have to put your information in. It gives you to our wealth plan. I'll also give it to Steve. And in closing, I want to say one thing, because I'm a Billions fan. There's a small group who can do the math. There's an even smaller group who can explain it. I'll come back to it. But those few that can do both, those guys become billionaires. That's my time, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.